Not sure if you know who I am, but I'm about to rule the world. But there's one problem. There's a human, has a mustache, just like you. Let's go.
There's a huge universe out there.
Whoa!
They're all counting on us.
The Super Mario Bros. Movie is the 13th... Sorry, folks. I don't know where that came from. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is the 13th film from Illumination Entertainment, as directed by the same duo who created Teen Titans Go. After discovering a warp pipe in Brooklyn, the Italian plumber Mario finds himself in the Mushroom Kingdom, where he must go on a dangerous adventure with Princess Peach and Toad to save his brother from the all-powerful Bowser, who plans on conquering the world. I don't think I need to say that Mario is one of the most important and influential icons in the history of gaming. I remember one year for my birthday I received a Wii console with Mario Kart included as a pack-in title, and that was probably the first video game I ever played, and from there I would play it constantly. After that, I would continue to play so many Mario titles throughout my childhood, including New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, Super Mario Land, Super Mario 3D World, Mario Kart 8. Pretty much everyone has their own experiences or memories with this franchise, or have a certain Super Mario game in mind that meant a lot to them. And I'm also sure at this point everyone knows about that infamous Mario Bros. Movie from the 90s with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. A film that's apparently so bad it made Nintendo stay away from making movies about their games. I've never actually seen that film, so I wouldn't know if it's really that bad, but I plan on keeping it that way. And I'll admit, I was a little worried when it was announced Nintendo chose Illumination to create another attempt at a Super Mario Bros. Movie. While I enjoyed the first 3 Despicable Me movies, I haven't liked any of Illumination's other films, as they've mostly been generic or boring animated movies. I'm sure you've heard all the complaints about Illumination's films on the internet before, and honestly, I don't think I have anything to add to that conversation that hasn't already been said. However, the trailers for this film did seem to promise something that looked a lot better than Illumination's normal output, and a movie with a lot of passion put into it, and that was enough to get me interested. And after watching this film, I don't think this is going to be a modern animated classic in the same veins as Spider-Verse, Puss in Boots, or the Lego Movie, but similar to the first Sonic movie, I thought this was a very welcome surprise and a fun adaptation that anyone can have a good time watching. Although, unlike the Sonic movies, which can be enjoyable even if you're not familiar with the games, this film does have a setback where it feels like it's mostly targeted towards die-hard Mario fans, as there's a giant barrage of deep-cut references to different games in the franchise. And it gets to the point where the film throws so much at the audience during its short runtime that it can become overwhelming if you don't have a ton of knowledge on the Super Mario Bros. Games. Since I understood a lot of the obscure references, that wasn't a huge problem for me, but I can definitely see it being a problem for others, especially since they're a huge part of the film. And that's the main issue with this film. The movie feels like it's mostly relying on non-stop references to different games instead of story, emotional beats, or character moments. The film's story feels very rushed thanks to the fast pacing and short runtime, and because of the constant references and the need to keep the adventure going, we never get a lot of moments with the characters or get to see them form the bonds we know them to have from the games. There are even some subplots with the characters that get completely glossed over, like one where Donkey Kong and Mario both want to impress their fathers, which doesn't feel like it gets the focus it should have gotten if the movie wanted to show a deep connection with these characters. A couple of major characters like Luigi and Toad also get sidelined for the majority of the film. And since Luigi is my favorite character from the Mario franchise, guess how that made me feel. However, while the fast pace might have negatively impacted the story, it also strangely benefited the movie as it allowed it to avoid any filler that could have slowed the pacing down or made the film a chore to get through. Because the adventure is always moving and we spend every scene getting to see more and more of the world, the film remains constantly entertaining. I can't think of any moment where I was bored or it felt like nothing important was happening in the story. Everything moves at a consistent pace and allows the adventure to feel energetic and lively, much in the spirit of the Super Mario games, and causes the movie to not only be easy to sit through, but fun to watch as the story keeps progressing. The action also contributes to this, where each sequence has a ton of creative set pieces from the games being used to the film's advantage. And they're also surprisingly well directed. The action keeps coming whenever the film needs a fun sequence to keep the story moving, and I don't think there was a single one that could be considered underwhelming. They were simple at their core, but they have a good pace, they're extremely well animated, and they are really fun to watch play out. Speaking of which, this film easily has the best animation in any Illumination film. It's not Spider-Verse in terms of stylistic choices, but it does a great job at bringing the Mario world to life, and it's got a really strong art direction, especially during the action sequences and the scenes meant to flesh out the world. I don't even mind some of the character redesigns. I think the animators did a good job capturing the distinct traits each character is known for, while giving them some slight tweaks to help them stand out as new adaptations of these characters that almost everyone is familiar with. A lot of the references and fan service doesn't feel that cynical or corporate either. There's no strong emphasis on them, and they mostly stay in the background. And thankfully, when one is in the spotlight, there's no awkward moment where the movie briefly pauses or plays triumphant music at full volume, expecting the audience to clap, unlike some other movies.
Black Adam.
Every reference and attempt at fanservice feels like it's coming from a place of love for the franchise, and the filmmakers wanting to be as faithful to the source material as possible, which is something I can respect even if I think they should have cut down on them a bit. But the biggest surprise of this movie for me was easily the score. Brian Tyler knocked this one out of the Wii Sports Park. This was easily one of the best scores I've heard in a film this year so far. The score mixes familiar Mario tracks with this grand but laid-back orchestration, and it sounds awesome whenever it comes up in the film. Even the original tracks in the score have this fun, adventurous vibe to them, and it sounds really nice and even a little nostalgic to hear, as it sounds like something out of a classic or modern Nintendo game. But even with the near-perfect score, this film uses a lot of licensed 80s music, and it feels really out of place whenever it's used in the film. And with the score mostly consisting of classic Mario tracks, it causes them to only stick out and feel more unnecessary. And before anyone asks, I thought Bowser's song was alright. I didn't love it as much as some others probably did, since it got a little repetitive after a while. Maybe if it had some abrupt changes in beat or tempo, or it transformed into a full-on villain song, it could have been even better and more memorable. Although, I'm sure there's one thing a lot of you are wondering about the film, and that is, how did the cast do? I think we all remember that fateful day of September 23rd, 2021, when it was announced Chris Pratt would play Mario, Jablinski Games would be our new Bowser, and Seth Rogen was about to inject his voice into Donkey Kong. And I'm just going to come around and say it, I actually really liked Chris Pratt's performance in this movie. I'll admit it was a little weird to hear his voice coming out of Mario's body during the first few minutes of the movie, but it grew on me over time, and I liked the Brooklyn spin he did on this iconic character. I also really loved Charlie Day's performance as Luigi, and I thought his voice fit the character perfectly. Anna Taylor-Joy's performance was far from her best work, but I thought she was pretty good as Princess Peach, even if she sounded a little underwhelmed in a couple of line deliveries. Maybe if they gave her character a cheeseburger, her performance could have been more dynamic, but who's to say? Even though Toad didn't do much in the story, I loved Keegan-Michael Key's voice for the character. And I don't think this is going to surprise anyone, but Jack Black as Bowser was easily the best performance and the scene stealer of the film. Not only does his voice perfectly fit the character, but he brings so much life and personality to him, allowing for Bowser to be an entertaining, irredeemable monster and a great source of comedic relief. And as with any movie featuring Jack Black, the best jokes came from him. Although the humor in general isn't perfect. There's nothing cringeworthy about the humor, but it's pretty hit or miss in general. The jokes aren't bad, but there's not a lot of memorable ones that are worth bursting out laughing over. I was a little torn on Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong at first, since he didn't change his voice at all for the role, like some of the other actors. But his casting eventually won me over, and I thought he fit the role pretty well. Kevin Michael Richardson also did the absolute perfect voice for Kamek. Really, the only performances I didn't like in the film were by Fred Armisen, who sounded bored in most of his line deliveries, and did fit the role of Cranky Kong very well. And while I liked the voice Juliette Jelinek did for Lumily, the way she was written made her come off as more annoying than genuine. By Illumination standards, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is an animated Mona Lisa, but by regular movie standards, it's a decently crafted film that works as a fast-paced, entertaining viewing experience and a faithful adaptation of the games, even if it mostly relies on strong animation, music, and references to the source material rather than story and character moments. I could tell there was a clear respect for the source material behind the scenes, as the film never once felt like a cash grab like most animated films these days, with constant references or movie adaptations of familiar works. And even if I don't think it panned out all the way, nor does it stand with some of the best animated films in recent memory, it works as a simple but solidly entertaining viewing experience, similar to most Mario games. As I said before, considering the normal quality output of both video game movies and Illumination films, it's a miracle this turned out as good as it did. And I think as an adaptation of these iconic games, it will definitely please a lot of fans of both video games and animation. It's not grand art or a game changer for the medium of animation, no pun intended, but at the end of the day, it's the same case as Detective Pikachu or the Sonic films, where it works as a fun movie adaptation, and that's really all I could ask for from a film like this. I'm going to give the Super Mario Bros. Movie a 6 out of 10. Could have been better, but it also could have been much, much, much worse. So those are my thoughts on the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Feel free to leave your thoughts on the film in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you like this review, I have some other projects coming up and a ton of videos on the channel just like this one. So if you want to support the channel and see more reviews, be sure to like the video, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell to be notified for any upcoming reviews.
WAHOO!